I am so sorry that I cannot be with you this evening, but we celebrate this year's In Conversation with our own, the Honorable Helen Giddings, and we are so grateful for the awesome, tremendous work that the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center does for this community, equipping and empowering people to fend for themselves, to fish for themselves, and creating economic stability in our community. And ultimately, we are fostering wealth creation, and that's important work. So we celebrate the work of the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center, and we celebrate this year's In Conversation. Thank you for being here. Take care and be blessed.
A distinguished guest each year who helps to shine a light on the life and events of our city, state, nation, and world. This year's distinguished guest is the Honorable Helen Giddings. This 11th presentation of In Conversation promises to be stimulating, visceral, and certainly impactful as we hear from a committed public servant concerned about shaping good public policy, education, and empowering women leaders. Before we begin our program, we would like to extend our sincerest appreciation and gratitude to our longtime title sponsor, Roland Parish and Parish Restaurants Limited. This year marks our 8th year of their support. Born in Hammond, Indiana, Roland Parish attended Purdue University on academic and athletic scholarships and became a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist. As CEO and owner of Parish Restaurants Limited, he owns 21 McDonald's restaurants in Dallas-Fort Worth, and his organization is the second largest African-American-owned McDonald's franchisee in the country. Parish is frequently featured in and stays on the top list of 100 Black-owned businesses in the country for Black enterprise. Currently, he ranks number 52. He has been recognized with countless honors, awards, and accolades for his entrepreneurship and philanthropic efforts in his community, the country, and the globe. Roland Parish is passionate about helping children and instilling the importance of higher education. His goal is for young people to capitalize on all opportunities presented to them, and where the opportunities are few, he aims to create more for them. His marriage to Jewel Parish for over 40 years has blessed them with sons Roland, a University of North Texas graduate, Wesley, a CAI graduate, and daughter Jade, who has degrees from Purdue and SMU's Cox Business School. Please turn your attention to the video screens to see how Roland Parish and Parish Restaurants Limited are impacting the community.
And now, a word from today's title sponsor, Mr. Roland Parish of the Parish Charitable Foundation and founder of Parish Restaurants Limited, in a recent interview with NBC5's Laura Harris.
My ministry is to help people, to help people, and it made life a lot more comfortable. It's, your purpose in life. So my purpose is to help people. And I think that God has given me many blessings so that I can continue to help people.
North Texas businessman Roland Parish has made it his mission to give back, while at the same time leaving his mark in Black history.
It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, what I did. And but again, hard work and the blue collar work ethic that I learned from my parents.
As the CEO of Parish Restaurants, he owns and operates 27 McDonald's restaurants in and around the Dallas area, building his first restaurant in the Pleasant Grove area of Dallas.
I guess you'd say socially and economically challenged community, but that's the kind of community I grew up in.
You have quite a passion for education and fueling the future, whether it be financially or going to speak to young children or giving the bikes that you do. Talk to me about why it's so important for you to be so involved in the North Texas community, especially when it comes to kids.
If I can supply or provide an educational opportunity for youth, I just think that that's the gift that keeps on giving. Is a great investment in the future. So that's one of the things I look at. Okay, am I going to provide an opportunity for youth for the future so that they can live the American dream and hopefully reach back and help someone?
For more than 20 years, Parish has made financial contributions to St. Philip's School in South Dallas, pledging $1 million to the advancement of its students. He hosts the McMiracle on Highway 67, where more than 3,000 students have received free bikes and helmets. Since 2010, he has been the presenting sponsor for the Texas Black Sports Hall of Fame, honoring a new group of black athletes and coaches who have made outstanding contributions. And he also started the Roland Parish Scholarship Debate Tournament in partnership with the Dallas Urban Debate Alliance to award scholarships to Dallas ISD debaters every January. And that's just to name a few. In addition to education, revamping communities is another passion of his. Parish is the second largest investor for the restructuring of the Reimagining Redbird project in the Redbird community. That project will also add medical and clinical services to the southern sector of Dallas.
I want you to realize that I came from a humble background and that hopefully you can achieve this and hopefully even go beyond this. So I hope that I motivate the young people to higher heights.
Mr. Parish has been a longtime sponsor of the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center and is proud of this partnership and its reinvestment in the community. We look forward to continuing our work together.
Please give a warm welcome to our title sponsor representative, Jade Parrish Marks.
Good evening, St. Luke. Giving honor to God, Pastor Emeritus Holmes, Senior Pastor Butler, officers, members, and friends. My name is Jade Parrish Marks, and I'm here today representing the title sponsors, Parish Charitable Foundation and Parish Restaurants. Luke 12:48 says, "To whom much is given, much is required." And this is the spiritual foundation of our business beliefs and practice in giving back to the community. This is the 11th year of In Conversation, and we are pleased to provide the title sponsorship for the 8th year in a row. Supporting this event benefits the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center, which has a mission to create self-sustaining pathways out of poverty for young people and families in Dallas through education and job placement. We know that this event provides so much value for the community, and we congratulate Mr. Rick Hightower and Mrs. Rita Parson Hightower as honorary chairs. We also congratulate the Board of Directors and Advisory Board for having such compelling past guests, including tonight's moderator, the Honorable Ron Kirk, Sent Marshal of the Dallas Mavericks, and the Honorable U.S. Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. We are so excited about this year's guest, the Honorable Helen Giddings, a committed public servant. And as usual, I'd like to give a special shout out to the St. Lou family and all of our friends and supporters here. Mr. and Mrs. Cliff and Wanda Johnson, Ms. Demetrius Sampson, Dr. and Mrs. Todd, Mr. and Mrs. Stanley and Pat Mays, and of course, Pastor and Mrs. Butler. Like you, I am looking forward to hearing from the Honorable Helen Giddings, a champion for the community, as she shares her story and insights. Thank you.
Again, we are grateful for our longtime title sponsor, Roland Parish and Parish Restaurants Limited. Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Jade. With our sponsor support, we can carry out our mission. We'd like to, again, thank our title sponsor, R.G. Parish and Family, Parish Restaurants, Roland Parish, and Jade Parrish Marks. Diamond sponsors, Johnson Management Company, and Wanda and Clifton Johnson, Demetrius Sampson, Esquire. Ruby sponsors, HEB, Encore, Linda and Frederick D. Todd II, MD. Sapphire sponsors, Carter Arnett, First National Bank of Texas, Matrice Ellis Kirk and Ambassador Ron Kirk, Katrina and William Keys, Lock Lord LLP, Multiplex Helen Giddings, Vincent F. Ratcliffe CPA LLC, the George Development Company. Emerald sponsors, American First National Bank of Texas, Senior Pastor Richie Butler and Naisha Strambler Butler, Comerica, Doctors Michael and Milana Hogan, Howland Advisory Corporation, Lineberger, Gargan, Blair, and Sampson, LLP, Otis and Rosie Brown Foundation, Methodist Health System, Plum Market, Simmons Bank, Riley Simmons II and Betty J. Simmons, the Billingsley Company, Celia and W. Kelvin Walker, University of North Texas at Dallas. And we thank our Pearl sponsors, and we thank our Topaz sponsors, our in-kind sponsors, Texas Metro News, Hornbuckle Photography. Special recognition, Carrie and Dr. Zan Wesley Holmes, Jr. Please welcome our incredible honorary chairpersons, Rick and Rita Pawson Hightower. We appreciate their steadfast support for In Conversation. Rick Hightower is a native of Atlanta, Georgia, a Texas Christian University graduate, and a Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity member. He is an operations manager in the Office of the Inspector General of the U.S. Postal Service. Rick is a veteran marathoner with about 25 marathons on his resume, and he coaches St. Luke's Run Club. He authored his first book, 26.2 Miles to Grace, How My Life Was Saved by Miracles, Marriage, and Marathons. Rita Pawson Hightower is a native of Dallas Oak Cliff. She is founder and business owner of I Do Eyewear, a Dallas optical eyewear company. An Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority member, her community service extends to the Otis and Rosie Brown Foundation and her church, St. Luke, in the women's chorus, the couples ministry, and mentoring young people. Rita and Rick have an adult son. Please welcome Rick and Rita Hightower.
Rita and I are delighted to be honorary chairs for the 2024 In Conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. As many of you are aware, In Conversation is a primary fundraising effort that makes possible the programs and operations of the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. In Conversation hosts distinguished guests each year who help shine a light on the life and the events of our city, state, nation, and world. I would like to recognize any elected officials here. And special recognition for our Master of Ceremonies, Riley Simmons.
We would be remiss if we did not take advantage of having you all gathered here today to tell you a little bit more about the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center. Please watch the following video, and then I invite each of you to make an investment by helping to bring sincere hope to our community by supporting our mission.
In the heart of Dallas, Texas, the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center is blazing a trail towards economic sustainability. Join us on a journey of empowerment, transformation, and community upliftment. At ZWHJCOC, we believe in creating pathways to economic sustainability, and we do so through 3 impactful programs. First up, our entrepreneurship program. When the pandemic hit, we stood by our community. We provided technical assistance to nearly 50 small businesses, securing over $900,000 through the Payroll Protection Program and Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Next, our Workforce Pathways Program. Our 4-week light electrical low voltage program is not just a job training initiative, it's a life transformation journey. We equip individuals with in-demand skills, offer job skills training, personal growth sessions, and emotional well-being support. Because it's not just about finding a job, it's about finding purpose. And finally, asset building. Our 3 financial literacy classes, including cash flow, collateral, and leverage, provide essential knowledge to build wealth. Increments of Success Coaching combines technical training with financial planning, guiding individuals in developing SMART goals. The Financial Wellness Village, a 12-week coaching program, empowers women to thrive during challenging times. But where did it all begin? The ZWHJCOC. Born in 2003 as a nonprofit extension of St. Luke Community United Methodist Church under the visionary leadership of Dr. Zan W. Holmes, Jr. Today, we continue his legacy, embodying the highest ideals of Christian service. Our vision? To engage Dallas families living in poverty with the opportunity to become middle-class citizens. Our mission? Creating self-sustaining pathways out of poverty for young people and families through education, training, and job placement. We serve the young people and families of South Dallas with a focus on the southeastern sector. The Frazier House, located in the newly renovated former Julia C. Frazier Elementary School, is a hub for educational services, job skills training, and placement opportunities. Our goals and objectives: from increasing literacy rates to providing job skills, connecting with strategic partners for higher education, and participating in the growth of African American businesses in South Dallas. We're on a mission. And as Dr. Zan W. Holmes Jr. wisely said, as people of faith, we should always continue to work to lift those who find themselves in difficult situations. Now, it's time for you to take action. Be a part of the solution. Make a difference. Become a contributor and help us serve our community. Together, let's build a future where everyone has the chance to thrive. Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center, creating pathways to a brighter tomorrow. Join us on this journey of hope and transformation.
Your donations are appreciated. Because of special donors like you, we can continue the Dr. Zan Wesley Holmes legacy of Christian service and the mission to create self-sustaining pathways out of poverty for young people and families in Dallas through education, job placement. Please use your QR code located in the pews or the QR on the screen to make a tax-deductible donation, or visit ZWHJCOC.org to make your donation. Thank you again for your support.
Thank you, Rick and Rita Hightower. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the 2024 In Conversation with our distinguished guest, the Honorable Helen Giddings, and our moderator, Ambassador Ron Kirk. Please welcome to the stage the Honorable Helen Giddings and Ambassador Ron Kirk. Ron Kirk is Senior of Counsel in Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher's Dallas and Washington, D.C. offices. He leads the International Trade and Practice Group and is a member of the Sports Law, Public Policy, Crisis Management, and Private Equity Practice Groups. Ambassador Kirk provides strategic advice to companies with global interest. Before joining Gibson Dunn in April 2013, Ambassador Kirk's extensive career in public service included his post as U.S. Trade Representative and member of President Obama's cabinet. He was the President's principal trade advisor, negotiator, and spokesperson on trade issues. He also served as mayor of Dallas from 1995 to 2001, and Governor Ann W. Richards appointed him as Texas Secretary of State in 1994. Prior to serving as trade representative, Ambassador Kirk was a partner at Vincent & Elkins LLP, where he practiced public finance and public policy. He is the corporate director of Texas Instruments and Macquarie Infrastructure Corporation. He previously served as a director for Brinker International, Dean Foods, and PetSmart. Ambassador Kirk is a trustee for Austin College, the LBJ Presidential Library Foundation, and a Dallas Citizens Council board member.
This ain't about me. Stop. That's enough.
The next thing you will hear is an introduction of our guest. Helen Giddings is president and CEO of Multiplex Incorporated, a specialty concessions company she founded in 1989. Her long public service career includes chairing the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce and leadership positions on the Dallas Transit Board and the Greater Dallas Chamber of Commerce. As honorary consul of South Africa for Texas, her work to improve trade and cultural relations between South Africa and the United States was recognized by many, including former South African President Nelson Mandela. Representative Giddings was a member of the Texas House of Representatives for 26 years, where she chaired the Business and Industry Committee, select subcommittees of the Appropriations Committee, and the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. Her legislative roles extended to the State Affairs Committee, Higher Education and Calendars Committees, and the Dallas Area Legislative Delegation. Representative Giddings authored and supported legislation in education, including her work to help create alcohol-free zones around schools, improve funding opportunities for historically Black colleges and universities like Prairie View and Texas Southern Universities, and helped to create the University of North Texas at Dallas and its law school. She was the first woman of color and Texan elected to the bipartisan 1,600-member National Foundation of Women Legislators. And a lengthy list of publications has praised Representative Giddings' achievements, including the Dallas Morning News, D Magazine, and Black Enterprise. Ebony Magazine named her one of the top 100+ most influential African Americans. She supports the arts through her service on boards for the Dallas Symphony, Dallas Summer Musicals, Dallas Historical Society, the Dallas Theater Center, and the African American Museum. The museum named a room in her honor in recognition of her contributions. A successful businesswoman, advocate, and changemaker, the Honorable Helen Giddings.
Well, good evening. Thank you all for joining us for what's going to be a wonderful evening to recognize someone who walks with us, serves us every day in the most humble way, but still I'm not sure all of us are aware of just how much she's accomplished. It's been said that no woman is a prophet in her hometown, but we're going to fix that tonight because of the extraordinary life and accomplishments of St. Luke's very own Helen Giddings. As you heard, she's been an accomplished businesswoman, political leader, and a philanthropist. But because of her humility, her natural inclination to work behind the scenes while shining the light on others, so much of what she has done has gone unnoticed. But I guess in the vernacular, Helen, forgive me, I'm still having a little bit of no more football hangover. But as they say on SportsCenter, that girl bad, y'all. So we're gonna jump into this. But if you would just give me one quick moment of personal privilege. I know we acknowledged the other elected officials that are here, but one of Helen's longest time colleagues, friends, servants is here. My friend, my brother, Royce West, who on Tuesday at 10 o'clock in Wilmer Hutchins, they are going to dedicate the Royce West Leadership Academy. So Royce, stand up. We are proud of you, my brother. So y'all heard from the video, most of us, many of us, we know Helen here, she serves, of her legislative career, but I want to go back to the beginning, which many of us met her. Helen, you started your career in business with Sears.
Yes, I did. Here, can you hear me now? Yes, with my associate's degree in secretarial science, I had my first job with Sears, Roebuck and Company, and I got that job because I could type 70 words a minute, and I could take shorthand at 120 words a minute. And back in the late 70s and early 80s, if you could type 70 words a minute and you could take shorthand at 120, you could get a really good job. And so that's how my career started, and then I went to the University of Texas at Arlington as I continued my career, and I became the person who was in charge of philanthropy for Sears, and ended up in charge of human resources for 11 states when Sears was the largest retailer in the world.
See, young folks don't know nothing about that, but we can all act like we don't know, but we all bought lawnmowers, washing machines. Our parents told us, go down to Sears. Some of us even went to that scratch and dent store, but we're gonna leave that alone. But Helen, your work in human resources got you noticed by a number of people, one of which was the Greater Dallas Chamber. A lot of people don't know there's been now, I guess, an almost 30-plus year very successful program called Leadership Dallas. And Helen, you were in charge of that.
I was actually in charge of that, and I was the first Black to have an executive position with the Greater Dallas Chamber of Commerce. And as you well know, having been one of my students, I was in charge of Leadership Dallas. You were in that class, Eric Moyer was in that class, Ray Washburn was in that class, Regina Montoya was in that class. It was really a who's who of people who've gone on to do some wonderful things.
And some people say, which I've never asked you, might have been the best class ever. Sounds like it to me. But that's another story. But you met and mentored so many young people in business and leaders, and through that, you also began to develop relationships with people throughout the city, and that led to your becoming an entrepreneur. But that's a fascinating story I wish you'd share with us about. Tell us about the conversation you had with then city manager Richard Knight.
I will do that if you will give me just a moment of personal privilege.
This is your night, just so you know. You can do what, quiet as it's kept, you can do what you want to.
You talked about the fact that we were going to talk about some of my accomplishments. Actually, Ron, they are some of our accomplishments. I've been so fortunate over the years, both at the Texas House of Representatives and in my company Multiplex, to have some of the brightest people that you can imagine working with me. I learned from them and they learned from me. And some of them are here tonight, and I don't want to miss this opportunity to introduce Lakeitha Anderson, who came tonight from Washington, D.C. She was an intern in my office. Tashawn Thomas, stand up, Tashawn. Tashawn came in from San Francisco. When I was chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, he was my director. I see Tamara Sadler. Most of you know Tamara was my chief of staff, both for my legislative office and for Multiplex. I see Cheryl Richards back there. She was not on my team, but I helped Cheryl find her first job in Dallas. And then Stan Mays is not here tonight, but his wife, Pat, is. And before Stan became an attorney, he was a shoe salesman for me. And Jane Hamilton, whom most of you know, her first job was with me in Austin, and she's gone on to do a lot of wonderful things, and now she's with Matthews Southwest. And Elaine Taylor. I belong to this church, and so does Elaine Taylor, and when we were over in the building next door, no, it was in this building, Elaine came up to me one Sunday and said, I need a job. I said, call me. She did, and I think she stayed with me for about 12 years. So whatever I've done, all of these people helped me to do it. I don't know if Tony Pippins-Poole is here. She may not. There she is. Stand up, Tony. You know her.
My classmate.
She was our elections administrator here in Dallas County, and she got her first job with me. My staffers were talking with her the other day, and she had us on speakerphone. And her husband said, she gave me my first job too. So stand up, Charles. I don't know if Stephanie is here. I haven't seen Stephanie, but I guess this is as you well know, your whole family has to be involved if you're in the political arena, and that's business as well. And my daughter Camelia is not here tonight, but I know that my son Stanley and my daughter Lisa are both here, and possibly my grandson Jordan. I don't see him. There, oh, my youngest grandson. Stand up, son.
Now, Helen, I'm going to tell y'all see what I mean when I talk about her wanting to give the credit to everybody else and doing. We're going to love on you tonight.
Okay, well, okay.
But so everybody that Helen given a job to mentored, all y'all stand up now. Come on, because we're going to get this back. I know it's uncomfortable, but this is your show. So all of you all stand up at large, family, friends, staff. Come on now, so we can, and we'll thank you. All right, now.
Okay, I see Stephanie. So how Richard Knight?
I told you I was going to let you do what you want,
Okay.
but it's uncomfortable. But the idea is for us to shine the light on your good work.
I'm with you.
You, I won't say you stumbled. You'd been in business, but when you decided to go on your own, that was an interesting conversation that started with you and then Dallas City Manager Richard Knight. So tell us about that.
Right. Sears, Roebuck & Company closed its territorial offices here, and I was offered a number of positions, but with all of that experience I had, I wanted to hang my own shingle. So I went down and I talked to Richard Knight, who was the city manager at the time, and I said, you know, I've got all this retail experience, and I really want to hang my shingle, and I really think I could do something in airports. And Richard said, well, why don't you go out there and talk to Danny Bruce, the aviation director for the city of Dallas? And I went out and talked to Danny Bruce, and I said, Danny, I think you're missing a couple of revenue streams here. Gourmet coffee, nobody's doing gourmet coffee in airports, and gourmet coffee is coming, and nobody is doing yogurt. And Danny said, well, Helen, do you think you could put something together? And I said, yeah, I do. So he said, well, you know, see what you can do and bring it back to me. So I took a couple of weeks, and, you know, I left there scared to death. I knew nothing about the airport business. But I went and put something together and shared it with Danny, and he said, let's do this. And so that was in 1989. That was before Starbucks got into the airport coffee business, and so I had the first gourmet coffee shop in the Southwest in an airport. And so it all started there in 1989. And then somewhere along the way, in 1993, I went to the legislature. But before I say that, Ron, you said this was my night, but you know, I mean, I want to give you some credit too. Well, it's my story, and I get to tell it. So, fast forward some years later, Ron Kirk becomes mayor, and you know, those of us who live in Dallas, we always brag about our town. And Ron was somewhere bragging about the black entrepreneurs in Dallas. And so somebody in the room said, well, do you know anybody in the concessions business? And he said, yes. And so he gave them about 4 names, one of which was mine. So that led to my joint venture with Hudson, which I still have today. He gave them 4 names, but cream always rises to the top.
I might have given them 4 names, but I had my hand over the paper, so they couldn't see those other 3. Now, what Helen didn't tell you is because of our friendship, and we were all coming up together, Helen and Royce and so many of us, and Helen and I had started this tradition. She would invite me to breakfast at least once a quarter. And we would just talk about Dallas and who's coming up and who's doing what. And so I was serving as Texas Secretary of State. I was home for one weekend. We go to our breakfast. We have our regular meeting, and breakfast is over. I mean, we're leaving. We haven't paid, and then Helen does what Helen does. She goes, Ron, by the way, a lot of people think you ought to be mayor. And so I love telling that because you know how we can do it. I hear all these stories about how the Citizens Council, the folks that decided it was time to have a mayor, and they, went in their laboratory and pulled a little colored boy out. That ain't happening. This woman right here was the first person to put that notion in my mind. So we did it. So we know by now you've got this successful business. You're mentoring people. You're thinking about politics. But you've also always had your finger in the community. And in addition to running your own business, you were also chairman of the board of the Dallas Black Chamber.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, you led the Capitol campaign to actually build them their own building.
That is a very, very interesting story. And Billy Allen is here tonight. I wanted to be a part of the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. And so I thought, I don't know how I get involved with those people because, they were always on radio and television. And I saw them as these big giants. And I thought, well, I'll just go over here and see. So I walked into the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. Ron White was the chairman of the board. And I was scared to death and said, I really would like to volunteer if you guys have anything I can do. Well, what I didn't know is because I was giving money away all around town, they knew who I was. And so they were thrilled to death. And before I left there, they had given me this big assignment to be in charge of their next event. And I left there just walking on air until I got to my office and I said, I didn't talk to them about the budget. I didn't talk to them about where the money. And so I called Ron and I said, I'm a little bit concerned. I'm delighted, I'm excited, but I didn't ask you about the budget. He said, well, that's pretty simple. It's however much money you can raise. So that was my introduction to the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. And, what I found out, Ron, was the meeting was really the meeting that was after the meeting, that was at a pub called the Plush Pub.
I don't know nothing about no Plush Puppy.
So even
we were Coach's Corner kind of people. We wasn't no Plush Puppy.
So even though I've never had a drink in my life, when the guys went to the Plush Pub, I went to the Plush Pub. And I became so much a part of the leadership, all male, at the time that when Ted Law got engaged, he asked me to come to his bachelor party. But it was one of the toughest things that I've ever had to do, really trying to break into the leadership of the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, because it was like every other organization of its kind back then. It was the good old boys' place, and they really weren't interested in having any women at the top. But I was able to kind of break through that and became the first woman to chair the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce board.
Man. Now, and you all see a pattern where Helen will look at an opportunity, whether she had that skill set, but, as we say, won't he do it? So you had that success, and then you were also instrumental in finding a home, building a home for the African American Museum in Fair Park.
Yes, I was not on first base there, actually. As you well know, the African American Museum started in the library in the basement at the old Bishop College. But while I was in charge of philanthropy for Sears, Billy Allen and Harry Robinson walked into my office one day and made this big spiel and laid out all these grandiose plans, and they had all these renderings, and it was going to cost X number of dollars. And they asked for some money from Sears. And when they left, I went next door to one of my colleagues, and I said, I wonder what those two have been drinking. Because I just couldn't believe these ideas that they had. But the bottom line was, I had given a lot of Sears money to other crazy people, so I decided to give some of it to them as well.
Well, because you believed in them, you did that. I want to fast because there's so much, and I want to make sure we don't run out of time. In addition to your encouraging me to run for mayor, but you also always kept me connected to other people, and even though a lot of your work was here, you were one of the first people to really open my eyes to the possibility of Dallas's growth because of international connections. And very early in the President Mandela's tenure, you developed a relationship with South African Ambassador Franklin Son, brought him to Dallas, and ultimately became the honorary consul from South Africa. I don't know that I ever asked you how that happened, but tell us.
Senator Rodney Ellis and I carried the legislation to remove the sanctions that Texas had in its constitution against South Africa. And so in '95, we carried that legislation, and I get this call from Franklin's son, who tells me he's the ambassador from South Africa to the United States, and he wants to come to this bill signing. And I was just shocked and surprised at the call. And I told him, well, you know, that's in the executive branch. I don't know if there's going to be a ceremonial bill signing, but I'll check it out and I'll let you know. So I went over and visited with then Governor George W. Bush. And I said, the ambassador has called and asked if he can come to the bill signing. And he said, well, I didn't know it was that big of a deal. And I said, well, it really is. They want some investment from this country so they can help stabilize their economy over there. And he said, well, tell them to come on. And so George W. was at his very best that day. I mean, the South African flag was flying. There was a red carpet down. Royce, you were there. I mean, it was just a wonderful time. And Franklin had only come to stay a couple of days in Austin. He ended up staying 5 days, came to Dallas, took him to Houston, and the whole business. And so then, while I was on a roll, I said to Governor Bush, you know, Texas really ought to do a trade mission to South Africa, because I think we need to send a message that it is now time for us to go in to help rebuild that economy and stabilize what I consider to be that fragile democracy. I don't think he had a clue what I was really talking about, but a few days later, Royce, I got a call from Brenda Arnett saying that the governor had said we were going to do this trade mission. I really got scared then because she told me I was in charge of putting this thing together. Hey, back in '95, the only thing people could tell you in terms of travel in South Africa is South African Airways has a trip from JFK to Oliver Tambo 3 times a week, and you know there were some chain hotels there, but you didn't know, you know, who the officers were, who the cabinet members were, or whatever. I mean, you could see that on the web, but they weren't answering their phones or anything. And so here I was putting this trip together. And finally, we have 34 people for this trip, including the Honorable Royce West, State Representative Al Price, Donna Dukes, Senator Ellis, a number of other people. And we go to South Africa. I am sitting, and my chief of staff, John Ader, who has all of the plans and all of the meetings, misses the plane. So here I am in South Africa, don't have my playbook. I'm just doing the best I can, and I am in my hotel room, and the phone rings. And this lady says, I am Mary McStana, and I am the executive assistant to President Nelson Mandela. And he has asked me to come over to the Rosebank Hotel and visit with you. It'll take me about 45 minutes because I'm in Pretoria. So I said, okay, thank you. I hung up the phone, and to myself, I said, she's the executive assistant to President Nelson Mandela, and I'm the Queen of Sheba. So I went downstairs, asked Royce and all these people who was playing this joke on me. They all swore they knew nothing about this. Well, in about 45 minutes, she comes, and she is the executive assistant to Nelson Mandela. And before she leaves, she hands me an envelope and says, the president asked me to give you this. And it's an invitation to have dinner with the president at the president's home in Pretoria. And I was just blown away, couldn't believe it. So that started a relationship that really, every time I went to South Africa, except for the last couple of years before his death, I had an opportunity to visit with him. When he got the Congressional Medal of Honor from Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, my country didn't invite me, but he did. And so I had a...
Well, I love that story because Helen told me that it inspired me. So when I was elected mayor in '95, one of the great privileges is we lead international trade missions. So we led the very first trade mission in my administration to South Africa. And Demetra Sampson bought half the country and brought it back because it was also the first trade mission co-chaired by the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce and not just the Dallas Chamber of Commerce, all inspired because of you. You mentioned the African American wing because there's such a thread through all of Helen's work. She never saw herself in one silo. She used Sears to become a funding source for black organizations that needed. So you talked about that and the Chamber and the African American Museum. But in 2009, we had a crisis while you were in the legislature. As many of you know, Paul Quinn had lost their accreditation, was really in financial trouble, a lot of concerns that we might lose the college after Coma Cottrell and Royce and others had already saved it once. But again, you stepped in and used your relationship with people on both sides of the aisle to help avert that. Tell us more about that.
Well, I was hearing all these stories that Paul Quinn was about to close, and it was in House District 109, which was the district that I represented. And so I called Sylvester Turner, who was chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, and said, hey, I've got a crisis here, and I'm going to need all of us working together to help with this. And so we called a meeting at Paul Quinn with the board, and I brought along the Commissioner of Higher Education, Raymond Paredes, Dan Branch, who was the chair of the Higher Education Committee in the Texas House, and every heavyweight that I could think of. And went down, we had a meeting with President Sorrells, and I said, what will it keep the doors open? And he said, well, a part of the reason that we lost our accreditation is because of the lack of reserve. And I said, so what will it take? And he said, $1.3 million. And I just leaned over to Sylvester, who was the official leader of this deal, and said, can we commit to this? He said, are you going to take the lead? But yes, I mean, he understood the value of historically black colleges, and I just said, hey, not to worry, 1.3 million, we can do this. It'll take us about 6 weeks, but we can do it. And so we walked out. The press was waiting for us. We announced that we were going to raise the 1.3 million. I had Commissioner Paredes on one side of me and Dan Branch on the other side of me, and I know they were thinking, what in the world have we gotten ourselves into? But we made that announcement. I walked that campus that day with Commissioner Paredes, and I said, please assure me that you are going to give Paul Quinn a certificate of authority, which is what a university has to have if it doesn't have accreditation in order to continue to award degrees. And he said, consider it done. So with that announcement, I knew that the first thing that I had to do was to get the first big gift. $1.3 million is a lot of money, and it was even more money back in 2009. So I thought about Linda Evans. I think she was in your Leadership Dallas class when I was in charge of Leadership Dallas. And Linda, at that time, was the president of the Meadows Foundation. So I called Linda, and I said, Linda, I need to see you. And she said, well, it'll be some date, 3 weeks hence. And I said, no, this is really important. She said, I'm catching a plane to South Africa tonight. And I said, is there any way that you can give me any time at all? And she said, well, if you can come right now and meet me at the Meadows Foundation. I said, okay, and I called Michael Sorrells, and I said, hey, here's what's up, on my way to see Linda. And I told Linda what the situation was, and I said, I need the help of the Meadows Foundation. This college is so important to Dallas, and it's so important to young people who don't have means, who are trying to get an education. And I didn't have anything with a budget on it. I didn't have any paperwork. All I had was this conversation with her. And she said, what do you need from me? And I said, $500,000. She said, well, you've got it. But please do not announce this to anybody, because I'm the president, but I have a board, and the board has to vote on this. She said, I'm sure that I can get their support and so forth. So we had the $500,000. And then I had this other problem, because the bishop for this district of the AME Church is always the chairman of the board of Paul Quinn College. And at that time, the business community pretty much said, we're not giving any more money because we just think that, frankly, there are too many ministers there who live out of town, and they don't raise any money, and they don't give any money. So we're not going to give any money. And so I said, not to worry. I'm going to change the bylaws. I'm going to work with the bishop, and we're going to change the bylaws. Well, one business person who had raised a lot of money said, I've raised a whole bunch more than 1.3 million, and I couldn't change the bylaws, and you're not going to be able to either. So I called Bishop Ingram, and I took him to breakfast and didn't get anywhere. I said, are you available for dinner? He said, yes. I didn't get any place. I called him the next day, said, how about lunch? He was just going to continue to be the chairman of the board. And I said, but Bishop, you're going to be the chairman of a board of a college with its doors shut. And I didn't get anywhere. So I called Sylvester Turner, and I said, Turner, I need reinforcements here in a big way. I said, the bishop is not going to move on this thing. So Turner told me that he would call the bishop, and he would be in Dallas in the next couple of days. And so next couple of days, he came in, he took the bishop to dinner. He called me from the airport on the way back to Houston and said, the bishop is going to send you a letter tomorrow. The bishop says that he has so many other responsibilities that Paul Quinn needs a chairman of the board who can concentrate primarily on Paul Quinn. Well, from that day to this one, I don't know how Turner did that, but I had worked with him in Austin, and he was always able to find a way to get something done. And so what we agreed to and what the bishop put forth, and it worked, was, I think it's like a business community leader for 2 years, and then the bishop the third year. So I then thought that we needed a strong turnaround person. And I went back to Linda Evans, and I said, Linda, the first time around, we really need a strong board chairman. And I know Bob Weiss. He's your right-hand person over here, and he has a reputation for turning around organizations. Would you be able to allow Bob Weiss to chair this board? And she said, if Bob wants to do it, we will support him. He said yes, he would do it. The bishop called for a meeting at my home. I cooked dinner, and they had the election, and Bob Weiss became the chairman of the board. In the meantime, the African American community stepped up. In 2009, I really didn't have a lot of money. I had $8,000 that I could give to Paul Quinn, and it's a little bit embarrassing when your friend gives $50,000 and you give an $8,000 and you're the chairman of the deal. But it's equal sacrifice, Demetrius. It's not equal giving.
I don't know, something about the Bible about the widow's mite seems appropriate here. But the bottom line, because I know they're giving me the deal, and I got one more thing. But you saved Paul Quinn, and there's a theory here. I hope you see this theme. Forgive me, my fellow brothers. Helen's in a room with a bunch of men doing all the talking. Helen ends up doing the work and getting the job done. God bless you for doing that. Finally, and she's so much, there's so much more. We don't have time. But education, helping young people, has been central to all of our lives. And during my tenure as mayor, we were always confronted with the why can't Dallas be like Atlanta? Why is Atlanta kicking our butt? Atlanta's a city too busy to hate. Atlanta this and that. And so I'd always tell the story to people about me being the first black mayor of Dallas, to educate them and us about the fact that Tom Bradley, Maynard Jackson, Emmanuel Cleaver, Willie Brown were all born in or around here, but left because of Jim Crow. But anyway, I'm talking about Atlanta, one day I popped off to a bunch of business leaders and said, we're not Atlanta, because we don't have 5 black colleges. And I said, no other city does. But I said, do you realize we are the largest city in North America that doesn't have a state-supported university in the city limits? And you cannot grow and change the lives of young people if they don't have a place to go to school. So I'm complaining about this somewhere with Helen and my friend Royce West, and the two of them worked together to pass the legislation that allows us to now have the University of North Texas at Dallas. Royce was the Senate sponsor, Helen was the House sponsor. So quickly, I want you to tell me how you got that done in the House, because I know how Royce was leaning on people in the Senate, but that's what I want to close with.
Well, actually, I thought both of you had been drinking whatever it was that Billy and Harry Robinson had been drinking when they came up with these grandiose ideas. But no, it was not an easy sell because the legislature just does not like opening up new universities. And when they do, they put so many restrictions on them that it's very difficult for them to operate. I mean, it's not just universities in our area, but when you think about the University of Texas at Dallas, the ledge never intended for that to be a 4-year university, and we did everything that we could as a legislature to keep that from happening. But I think one of the things that helped a great deal after the first year or so, Tom Craddock was the Speaker of the House. And in my opinion, when Tom was the Speaker of the House, he was the most powerful politician at the Capitol. It wasn't the governor, it wasn't the lieutenant governor, it was Tom. And so if you were able to convince him that something was good, if you could convince him, and he gave you his word, he kept it, and that made it easy for me. And of course, I served on appropriations, and that's where you divvy up the money. And when people tell you that they serve in the House and they serve on appropriations, please know that they are really working hard. As Tamara can tell you, what that meant as a member of the Appropriations Committee is that you're there at 7:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday. Most of other people are at home. And you don't have to do that. It's up to you. You can slack off if you want to, but if you slack off, you're not going to be effective. Somebody's going to slip something over on you. And so it was being on appropriations and, following Royce's leadership on that, because definitely, you saw what was happening. Royce caught the vision, and you guys shared it with me. And so together, we made it happen.
Well, thank you so much for doing that. And there's so much more, but there are other people who want to have a few words. So we've got a short video. No, you got to.
I can't talk about the African American Memorial
Well, we got so much, but
okay.
because they're going to run us out of here.
Okay.
But we have a video that we're about to run. But I do want to remind you all, when we listen, especially now when people say my vote doesn't matter, folks, it matters. When you elect people like Senator West, like Representative Giddings, they use their genius to work to make things happen. So I say that to remind you, we have elections coming up next month. Early voting starts Tuesday. So don't let anybody tell you that it doesn't matter. And as Helen told you, and I always tried to remind the council of this, politics is 10% poetry and 90% finance. It's always about the money. But Helen, there are other people who want to applaud you and thank you for your service. And so we've got a short video that we're going to do before we then come back and thank Helen. So can we roll the video? We're ready.
Hi, I'm Bob Mong. I'm president of UNT Dallas and the UNT Dallas College of Law. I've personally known Helen through two careers that probably date back 40 years. When I was managing editor and editor of the paper, we had a lot of respect for the work that Helen did. Obviously, in a role like I had and a role she had as a legislator, sometimes, there were disagreements, but she was always an adult in the room and negotiated very well for herself. And when I came to UNT Dallas, it became a very different relationship and a very, very productive relationship.
Hello, I'm Mary Evans Sias. I am the interim president at Texas Southern University, and I'm delighted to talk about Helen Giddings, someone I've known for more than 40 years. I knew her when she worked at Sears, but really got to talk to her and learn her better when she served as vice president for leadership development for the Dallas Chamber. Little did I know that once Helen has your phone number and you're in her Rolodex at the time, you're going to get called and you're going to serve. And that service has been one of the most remarkable additions to my life.
I'm Sylvester Turner, a former state representative of some 27 years. 24 of those 27 years, I worked with State Representative Helen Giddings. When I tell you committed to Dallas, Texas, Helen Giddings is committed to Dallas, Texas. In the 20-something years that we have worked very closely together and been friends, the only time that Helen and I have fallen out was when we both served on the Appropriations Committee. And there was a measure determining what dollars, significant dollars were going to be appropriated. And they were either going to go to Houston or go to Dallas. And that's the only time in the history of our friendship that we we were not on the same page. And we simply agreed that we were just gonna let things stay where they were.
You know, when I was approached to become president of UNT Dallas, one of the people I had to talk to was Helen Giddings, because she, along with Senator West, were the two people most responsible for the creation of UNT Dallas as an institution designed to close educational attainment gaps, particularly in southern Dallas County. And so I always found Helen Giddings somebody that I could rely on for honest feedback. I consider her a mentor and a friend. And so there were times, you know, particularly in the early days, when I don't think the university was taken that seriously in Austin. And she was one of the people that helped me stay positive, build relationships, and talk about why UNT Dallas matters. And it's something you never forget.
She was an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur. I was the partner of a law firm that was doing that very, very well. And we always had the understanding that, look, we don't need a lobbyist to pay for our lunch or our dinner. Either one of us was fully capable of doing that ourselves. So we weren't trying to track down somebody to come pay for our meals. We weren't trying to track down somebody to try to do things for us financially. She used to say frequently on the floor of the Texas House and in our own private conversations is that, Turner, when we're placed in a position where we can make a difference, we have to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. And I think that's what she said her dad had said to her too, is that when you find yourself in a position where you can make a difference, then you must speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, even if it's at your own personal expense.
I felt that Helen often risked her career if the issue mattered. We all know, and there are many examples, but one example that I keep in my mind is she took on the liquor industry. There were too many liquor stores too close to inner city schools. She got that changed, and she put up with a lot of pushback, but she got it done. That's Helen Giddings.
Here at Texas Southern, I was talking to our financial aid director 2 days ago because we were looking for ways that students who didn't have enough money to get registered this way wouldn't have to drop out. And guess whose name and fund came up? The Helen Giddings Fund. And when I asked how many students have been impacted, because it was like 368 this semester alone that have been able to return to school because of her, it's more than 5,000 students.
And you're talking about someone who was extremely ethical, Helen Giddings. If you talk about someone who came prepared, Helen Giddings. If you talk about someone who was passionate in what she believed, that's Helen Giddings.
Marian Wright Edelman probably said it best when I was in a meeting one time when I heard her talk. And she said, you know, it doesn't take many people fighting against injustice to make a difference. And the example she used, she said, it just takes a few committed fleas. I thought, a few committed fleas. She said, a few fleas placed strategically will make even the biggest dog scratch. Well, what I can tell you is Helen Giddings figured out where those few fleas needed to be placed. She placed them there, and she's transformed our city, our state, the women and people in it, and our nation. It's a job well done, Helen. Job well done.
In life, you don't meet a lot of people that you can really characterize as a friend. And we use that term loosely. But what I can say, you are a friend, and you are my friend. And I could not be more proud of what you have done. Our moms and dads, I think, are smiling from above and proud of what we have done. Love you.
Helen, congratulations. And I think we all look forward to the discussion with Mayor Kirk today.
What an outstanding and moving conversation. Thank you, Ambassador Ron Kirk, and our distinguished guest, the Honorable Helen Giddings, for your keen insight on issues and events that influence our lives. And now we have a special presentation from our honorary chairs, Rick Hightower and Rita Pawson Hightower.
What a wonderful conversation. I have known the Honorable Helen Giddings from years, from right here at St. Luke. A lot of you may not know, some of you do know. She has served. You could catch her on any door as an usher here for many, many years, and she didn't play about hers. But we want to say to both of you, to our moderator, the Ambassador Ron Kirk, thank you for your time. Thank you for a great conversation. We have something for you, as they used to say in the Baptist church. We can't pay you, but we got a little something to show our appreciation. And to our Honorable Helen Giddings, thank you. I knew some of the story, but I found out so much more, and thank you for your service. Thank you how you have poured into so many. You know, I think about you've poured into our community, you poured into the Dallas community, you poured into Texas, and you poured into the nation, so thank you.
Thank you, Rick and Rita Hightower. Ms. Demetra Sampson is an attorney and former managing partner of the Dallas office of Lineberger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, LLP. She was the first African-American woman partner in a majority firm in Dallas. She has been an active member of St. Luke Community United Methodist Church for over 37 years and serves as board chair of the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center. She also chairs the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport Board of Directors and serves on the Dallas Breakfast Group and Titus Dance Unbound boards. Ms. Sampson volunteers, supports, participates, and advises in local, state, and national civic, business, philanthropic, and political communities. In retirement, Ms. Sampson enjoys membership in the Lynx, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, the Dallas Summit, the Dallas Assembly, and the Women's Leadership Summit. Please welcome Ms. Demetra Sampson.
So, testing. I am here to present gifts to the honorary chairs. Now, baby, before you get up, let me find out what the gifts are. I think these are the gifts right here. Am I correct, Kenna? I think I'm correct. Okay. Please come forward. We are so grateful that you have served as honorary chairs for us for this In Conversation. And we thank you for your time. We thank you for your service. these are also 2 active members of St. Luke. So give me a hug.
Thank you, Demetrius.
Okay.
This is really nice.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. Okay, so I have my notes here, so we're gonna see how this works, okay? I want to give some other thanks. Let's start with the title sponsors for In Conversation for the 8th year, Roland Parish and Parish Restaurants Limited, and to my friends, Ron Kirk and Helen Giddings. Okay. So, you know, these are truly friends, everybody. And it just so happens they serve as advisory members on the advisory board for the Zan Wesley Holmes Junior Community Outreach Center. So we thank you for that service as well. I want to thank the Reverend Dr. Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. and Mrs. Carrie Holmes. So, and I also want to thank, we had a video from him, but Senior Pastor Richie Butler and Nisha Stramler Butler, who is the First Lady of this congregation. Please stand. And you hear that nice, deep baritone voice that is the moderator for this evening. That is Riley Simmons II, who is right there. Thank you. And the members of the St. Luke Community United Methodist Church. If you are here and you are a member, please stand. Also, a special thank you to volunteers. Now, when people will come at the last minute, okay, because you messed up and you did not call them to the last minute, and they still show up for you. That's love. That's nothing but love. I want to thank the parking ministry. Please stand. Are they in here? Out there doing their job. Yeah, that's always it. The Sunrise Ushers who are here. The media ministry. And the greeters and the other volunteers. Please stand. Miss Schuyler. We could not do this without our staff for the Zan Wesley Holmes Junior Community Outreach Center. Please stand. Our staff executive director, Francis Smith-Dean. Erica Lloyd, our operations manager. Darylyn Dean, executive assistant, who I know is here. And then to the board of directors. So if you're on the board and you are here, please stand. Linda Todd, the vice chair of the board. Bill Keys, who is the secretary of the board. Vincent Ratcliffe, the treasurer of the board. And of course, Dr. Holmes is on the board. Clifton Johnson, and Malcolm Mayo, Brenda Williams, and Riley Simmons II. Thank you, and thank you. To our advisory board members, Mrs. Willie Mae Coleman, the Honorable Helen Giddings, Wanda Johnson, Ron Kirk, Clem Maddox, and Calvin Walker. Okay. So I hope that I'm reading these in the order that they're supposed to be read in. Amen. And then I want to finally give honor to and a tribute to someone who served as the vice chair of our board, who served with honor, with dedication, and we are going to have a tribute to her. So thank you for coming this evening. We're going to hear this tribute. Thank you for everything that you have done. If you are here as someone's guest, we appreciate you being here. Some of you are here every year, and you support us every year, and we appreciate that. So we're going to hear this tribute to Mrs. Bernice J. Washington.
Mrs. Bernice J. Washington served the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center with distinction for 7 years. She was vice chair of the board, chaired the Funds Development Committee, and was an advisory board member. She was a nationally recognized, successful businesswoman on more than 18 boards of directors, holding significant leadership roles on most, including Texas Health Resources and the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Always willing to chip in, support, and assist where needed, Bernice could be seen and heard at the Zan Holmes Center's presentations, programs, classes, and fundraising events. Her mere presence and considerable charisma made her a board and audience favorite. Bernice put her money, time, and courage into creating pathways out of poverty. We applaud our friend Bernice J. Washington for her excellent work. Well done, good and faithful servant. Well done.
So we thank all of the vendors who are here. If you are a sponsor, let me just ask you to stand. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to announce your name. But I want you to stand if you are a sponsor. That's you too, Dr. Michael, Dr. Michael. All of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. And with that, once we see the vendors on the screen, we are done until In Conversation 2025. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 2024 In Conversation. Thank you for attending.